2. Replaying old clips, reading meaning into moments that once felt harmless. But that night, none of that mattered yet. What mattered was that several familiar faces were in the same space, egos were already bruised, and unresolved tension had been sitting in the room like smoke no one wanted to acknowledge. In this fictional scenario, Papoose arrived later than expected. When he walked in, conversations shifted. Some people went quiet, others got louder. Emotions ran high without a single word being said about why. Those who were there later claimed it felt like two different realities colliding in one room. On one side, history, loyalty, and years of public battles fought together. On the other, something newer, rawer, and far less stable. Remy tried to play peacemaker at first, moving between groups, laughing a little too loudly, touching arms, deflecting questions. But the boyfriend kept watching Papoose, eyes sharp, jaw tight, like he was measuring something that couldn't be measured. According to fictional insiders, the first argument didn't even involve Remy. It started between the boyfriend and a mutual friend, a comment taken the wrong way, a joke that landed like an insult. Voices rose, chairs shifted, someone tried to change the subject, but the energy had already cracked. Remy stepped in, her tone firm but controlled, telling everyone to relax, reminding them this wasn't the place. Papoose stayed quiet, leaning back, observing, which somehow made things worse. Silence can be louder than shouting, and in this story, it hit like a challenge. The boyfriend allegedly snapped, not with violence at first but with words. Reckless ones. He questioned loyalty. He questioned respect. And then, without directly naming him, he questioned Papoose's presence. That's when the room froze. Fans would later say this was the moment everything crossed a line. Papoose finally spoke, his voice calm, almost disappointingly calm for people expecting fireworks. He said nothing disrespectful, nothing aggressive. Just a few words about knowing his place and not needing to prove anything. But those words cut deeper than yelling ever could. Remy's face changed. Those who claimed to have seen it said her expression wasn't anger but disappointment. Deep, heavy disappointment. She pulled the boyfriend aside, whispering sharply, telling him to stop, telling him he was embarrassing himself. The boyfriend pulled away. That physical movement, small as it was, became symbolic later. People would replay it in their minds, wondering if that was the moment the night was doomed. Voices around them grew louder again. Phones started coming out. Someone laughed nervously. Someone else said this wasn't going to end well. Then came the accusation. In this fabricated tale, the boyfriend allegedly accused Remy of still being emotionally tied to Papoose. Not as a joke, not as a slip, but straight, loud, and public. The room erupted. Remy fired back, her voice sharp, reminding him of boundaries, of respect, of everything she had done to protect him from scrutiny. Emotions ran high, and for the first time, fans would say they saw vulnerability crack through her usual armor. Papoose stood up then, not to fight, but to leave. And that decision, in this story, changed everything. As Papoose moved toward the door, someone else stepped into his path. Not Papoose, not Remy, someone no one expected. Words were exchanged quickly, overlapping, messy. No one agrees on who said what first. But what everyone in this fictional account agrees on is that the boyfriend turned away from Remy for just a second. And in that second, the energy shifted from emotional to physical. There was a shove, maybe more than one. People yelled to stop. And then, suddenly, it happened. The alleged knocked-out moment wasn't dramatic in the way movies make it. No slow motion, no heroic stance. Just a sudden movement, a blur of bodies, and then the boyfriend on the floor, stunned, confused, pride shattered before consciousness fully caught up. Gasps filled the room. Someone screamed his name. Remy froze, hands over her mouth. And Papoose? In this fictional retelling, he wasn't even near the impact. That's the part fans can't stop talking about. The shocking part wasn't just that someone went down. It was who didn't do it. Panic took over. People rushed forward. Others backed away. Accusations flew immediately, pointing in every direction except the right one. Remy knelt beside the boyfriend, torn between anger and concern, while others argued over what they had just seen. Some swore it was self-defense. Some swore it was inevitable. Others claimed it was someone protecting Remy when words turned dangerous. And through it all, Papoose stood to the side, silent, eyes heavy, like a man watching a chapter close whether he wanted it to or not. Within minutes, the story fractured into versions. By the time the boyfriend was helped up, the room was divided. The family was left divided. Friends chose sides instantly. And even before anyone stepped outside, fans were already being created in real time, future comment sections already forming. In this fictional drama, the real damage wasn't the hit itself, but what it exposed. Trust issues, insecurity, unresolved bonds. And a truth no one wanted to say out loud yet. Whatever this situation was supposed to be, it was never as simple as it looked. And as the night dragged on, with voices still raised and relationships quietly cracking, one thing became clear to everyone involved. This wasn't over. Not even close. After the alleged knockout, time didn't move forward normally in this fictional story. It dragged, stretched, folded in on itself. Seconds felt like minutes, and every movement felt watched, judged, and destined to be replayed later through someone else's version of the truth. The boyfriend, now back on his feet but visibly shaken, kept insisting he was fine, even though his voice betrayed him. His pride had taken the hardest hit, and everyone in the room could feel it. Remy stood torn between concern and fury, her emotions colliding in real time. She kept asking who did it, demanding answers, but the room only offered noise, confusion, and finger-pointing. Someone claimed it happened too fast to see. Someone else swore they saw a hand come from the left. Another insisted the boyfriend had lunged first. And then there were those who looked directly at Papoose, waiting for a reaction, a confession, a flare of anger. But in this fabricated version, Papoose didn't give them that. He stayed calm, repeating the same thing quietly, that he didn't touch anyone, that he was already walking away. That calm, instead of settling things, only poured gasoline on the fire. Fans would later say it felt calculated. Others would say it felt mature. The room itself didn't know what to make of it. Remy finally snapped. She raised her voice, cutting through the chaos, telling everyone to shut up. Emotions ran high, and for a brief moment, she commanded the room the way only she could. She demanded space. She demanded honesty. And most of all, she demanded respect. The boyfriend tried to defend himself, saying he felt disrespected all night, that he felt played, that he felt like the outsider in a story that never fully included him. Those words hung heavy in the air. Some people nodded. Others rolled their eyes. But no one ignored them. In this fictional narrative, Remy's response was brutal in its honesty. She told him that insecurity wasn't strength, that accusations weren't love, and that embarrassing her in front of people who already watched her life like entertainment was unforgivable. The room went quiet again. The boyfriend's face tightened. Whatever sympathy he had been gaining started slipping away. Friends exchanged looks. Family members whispered. The family was left divided, and the lines were being drawn right in front of everyone. Someone suggested they all leave. Someone else said the damage was already done. The boyfriend refused to go at first, insisting he wasn't going to be made to look weak. That word, weak, echoed in his head, according to fictional insiders, louder than any insult thrown that night. He looked around, searching for validation, but found only discomfort. Even those on his side seemed unsure now. Remy stepped back, putting physical distance between them for the first time that night, and that distance spoke volumes. Outside, in this imagined version of events, the night air didn't cool anything down. It only sharpened the edges. Small groups formed, each one crafting their own narrative of what just happened. One group insisted the boyfriend had been baited. Another claimed he'd crossed too many lines. Someone quietly admitted they saw a third person throw the punch but refused to say who. Rumors began forming instantly, even before social media got involved. Fans are shocked later not because of the punch, but because of how fast loyalty dissolved afterward. Papoose finally spoke again, this time directly to Remy. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough for those closest to hear. He told her he was leaving because the situation wasn't healthy for anyone. He told her she didn't deserve to be in the middle of other people's insecurities. Those words hit harder than anything physical that night. Remy didn't respond right away. She just nodded, eyes glossy but controlled. For a moment, it felt like history was standing right between them, reminding everyone that some bonds don't disappear just because people want them to. The boyfriend saw that exchange and lost it. Not violently, but emotionally. He accused Papoose of playing the hero. He accused Remy of choosing comfort over commitment. His voice cracked as he spoke, and for the first time, people saw fear instead of bravado. Fear of being replaced. Fear of being exposed. Fear of realizing he was never as secure in this relationship as he pretended. Emotions ran high again, and this time, no one rushed to calm him down. Remy responded coldly now, her tone changed. She told him this wasn't about Papoose. It was about his actions. His words. His inability to control himself when it mattered. She told him that getting knocked out wasn't the tragedy of the night. The tragedy was how he handled everything before and after it. Those words cut deep. Even those who didn't like the boyfriend felt the weight of them. Silence followed. Heavy, uncomfortable silence. By the time everyone finally dispersed, nothing felt resolved. The boyfriend left with friends, still arguing, still trying to salvage his pride. Remy stayed behind longer than anyone expected, replaying everything in her head. Papoose was gone. The room was empty, but the damage lingered. Phones buzzed non-stop as messages started pouring in. Screenshots, voice notes, exaggerated retellings. By morning, the story would no longer belong to the people who lived it. It would belong to the fans. And as dawn approached in this fictional saga, one truth became impossible to ignore. Whatever happened that night wasn't just a moment. It was a turning point. And the fallout was only beginning. By the next morning, in this fictional story, the silence was louder than the chaos had been. Remy woke up with that familiar heaviness in her chest, the kind that doesn't come from exhaustion but from realization. Her phone was face down on the table, vibrating every few minutes like it was alive, but she didn't touch it. She already knew what was waiting. Messages from friends asking if she was okay. Missed calls from people who suddenly cared. And somewhere out there, the beginning of a narrative she couldn't control. The boyfriend, on the other hand, woke up angry. Not sore, not embarrassed, but angry. According to imaginary sources close to him, he felt humiliated, convinced the night had been a setup, convinced everyone had watched him fall and enjoyed it. He replayed the moment again and again in his head, each time changing it just enough so he came out looking like the victim. In his version, he had been disrespected. He had been provoked. He had been betrayed. Accountability didn't exist in that version. Only justification. By noon, the first whispers hit social media. Nothing concrete, just vague posts, cryptic captions, emojis doing all the talking. Fans are shocked not because of what was said, but because of who was suddenly being vague online. Someone close to the circle posted a story about fake peace and real consequences. Another posted a broken heart emoji followed by a fist. People started connecting dots that weren't even fully drawn yet. Names weren't mentioned, but everyone knew exactly who it was about. That's how these stories work. Remy finally checked her phone. Hundreds of notifications. She scrolled past most of them, stopping only when she saw a message from Papoose. It was short, respectful, no blame, no advice, just checking in. That message hit her harder than all the noise combined. Emotions ran high again, this time quietly, privately. She didn't respond right away. She wasn't ready to open that door, not when everything else felt like it was collapsing. The boyfriend noticed her distance immediately. He called. She didn't answer. He texted. Long paragraphs. Voice notes. Apologies mixed with accusations, remorse tangled up with defensiveness. He kept saying he didn't mean for things to go that far, while also insisting none of it was really his fault. Remy read every word, her face unreadable. This was the pattern she had tried to ignore. Intensity mistaken for passion. Insecurity disguised as protection. And now, violence, even if indirect, hanging over everything like a shadow. In this fabricated narrative, friends started choosing sides publicly. One friend went live, claiming people were twisting the story. Another subtweeted about men who can't handle strong women. Fans dissected every post, every like, every unfollow. When Remy unfollowed the boyfriend later that afternoon, the internet exploded. Screenshots spread in seconds. Fans are shocked became an understatement. Speculation turned into certainty overnight, even though no one actually knew the full story. The boyfriend didn't take the unfollow well. He posted a long, emotional message about loyalty and betrayal, careful not to name names but obvious enough that everyone understood. He painted himself as misunderstood, attacked, isolated. He hinted that people would be surprised if the truth ever came out. Comments flooded in. Some supported him, others dragged him mercilessly. The family was left divided in public now, not just behind closed doors. Remy stayed silent. That silence became its own statement. People praised her restraint. Others accused her of hiding something. Every old interview, every lyric, every clip with Papoose resurfaced. Fans compared her past and present like it was a case study. Some said she had a pattern. Others said she was repeating a lesson she already learned the hard way. None of them asked how she felt. None of them really cared. Meanwhile, in this story, Papoose was being dragged into it whether he liked it or not. His calm demeanor from that night was being reframed by fans as maturity, strength, restraint. Memes started circulating, painting him as the silent protector, the man who didn't need to throw a punch to make a statement. Others accused him of lurking, of waiting for chaos to unfold. He ignored it all. He'd lived this life long enough to know when to stay quiet. Behind the scenes, Remy and the boyfriend finally spoke face to face again. Not in public, not with friends around, just them. The conversation was tense from the start. He wanted reassurance. She wanted accountability. He wanted to talk about the punch. She wanted to talk about everything that led up to it. Every time she brought up his behavior, he circled back to how embarrassed he felt. Every time she talked about respect, he talked about loyalty. They were speaking the same language but hearing different words. At one point, in this fictional exchange, Remy asked him a question that stopped him cold. She asked if he felt safe being with someone he didn't trust. He didn't answer right away. When he finally did, his answer wasn't convincing, not even to himself. That was the moment she knew something had broken beyond repair. Not because of one night, but because of everything that night revealed. Outside that room, the narrative kept growing. Blogs picked it up. Reaction videos popped up. Everyone had an opinion. Some blamed Remy for entertaining the situation. Others blamed the boyfriend for letting ego lead him. A few even blamed Papoose just for existing. The internet doesn't need facts. It needs drama, and this fictional drama delivered. As the day turned into night again, Remy made a decision. Not publicly, not with an announcement, just a quiet choice to step back. She stopped responding. She stopped explaining. And that silence, once again, spoke louder than anything else. For the boyfriend, it felt like abandonment. For Remy, it felt like survival. And as this imagined story moved forward, one thing became clear. The punch was only the spark. The real fire was everything that followed. Days passed in this fictional storyline, but the tension didn't fade. It fermented. Remy stayed out of sight, avoiding public appearances, canceling meetings, letting the noise burn itself out without feeding it. To the outside world, that looked like strength. To those close to her, it looked like exhaustion. She was tired of being strong for everyone else, tired of carrying narratives that weren't hers, tired of relationships turning into public courtrooms where everyone felt entitled to a verdict. The boyfriend, meanwhile, was unraveling. According to imagined insiders, he felt the walls closing in. The sympathy he expected never fully came, and the support he did receive felt hollow. Every time he refreshed his feed, there were more memes, more jokes, more people laughing at his lowest moment. Getting knocked out became a punchline, stripped of context, stripped of humanity. His anger shifted targets constantly. One minute it was Remy. The next it was Papoose. Then it was the unnamed person he claimed actually threw the punch. Blame became his coping mechanism. In this fabricated drama, he reached out to Remy again, this time with a different tone. Softer, reflective. He admitted he felt insecure standing in the shadow of her history. He admitted he felt like he was competing with a ghost he could never beat. Those words almost landed. Almost. Remy listened, but she didn't interrupt, didn't comfort, didn't reassure. When he finished, she told him insecurity wasn't the problem. How he handled it was. That distinction mattered more than he wanted to accept. Friends tried to mediate. Some told Remy to consider forgiveness. Others told her to run. The family was left divided, not just over what happened, but over what it meant. Was this a one-time emotional explosion or a warning sign she couldn't afford to ignore? Remy asked herself that question over and over, especially late at night when the noise finally died down and there was nothing left but truth. Social media, of course, refused to move on. Fans are shocked turned into fans are choosing sides. Reaction videos dissected body language from old interviews, freezing frames, zooming in on glances that probably meant nothing at the time. People claimed they saw this coming. Others insisted the boyfriend never stood a chance. In the middle of it all, Remy felt less like a person and more like a storyline everyone thought they owned. Papoose stayed silent publicly, but privately, in this fictional account, he was wrestling with his own emotions. Seeing Remy dragged back into chaos stirred old feelings he had buried carefully. Not romantic longing, but concern. Familiarity. The kind of care that doesn't disappear just because the relationship changes form. He didn't reach out again, not wanting to complicate things, but his presence lingered like an unspoken option, which only fueled more speculation. The boyfriend noticed that too. Every article that mentioned Papoose without mentioning him felt like another loss. He began telling his version of the story more aggressively, reaching out to smaller platforms, hinting at exclusives, trying to reclaim control of the narrative. But every time he spoke, the comments reminded him that the internet had already decided who looked composed and who looked reckless. No amount of explanation could undo the visual of him on the floor and Papoose walking away untouched. In one particularly dramatic moment in this fictional saga, the boyfriend allegedly confronted one of the friends he believed had betrayed him by not defending him that night. Voices were raised again, accusations flew again, and once again, people backed away, unwilling to be pulled into another storm. That confrontation only reinforced what many already believed. The night wasn't an anomaly. It was a pattern. Remy heard about it hours later and felt something settle inside her. Not anger, not sadness, clarity. She realized she had been trying to fix something that didn't want to be fixed. She had been shrinking parts of herself to make someone else feel bigger. And the alleged knockout, as chaotic and embarrassing as it was, had exposed that imbalance in a way she could no longer ignore. When she finally spoke publicly in this fictional story, it wasn't an interview. It wasn't a rant. It was a simple post. Short, measured. She didn't name names. She didn't explain details. She talked about growth, boundaries, and choosing peace over chaos. That was it. No comments turned on. No follow-up. The message was clear without being loud. The reaction was instant. Some praised her maturity. Others accused her of avoiding accountability. The boyfriend responded with a vague post of his own, talking about being painted as the villain. But the momentum was gone. People were already moving on, which somehow hurt more than the criticism. Being forgotten is a different kind of loss. Privately, Remy and the boyfriend had one final conversation. No shouting, no accusations, just acceptance. He asked if there was any chance to fix things. She said no, not because she hated him, but because she respected herself. That answer stayed with him long after the call ended. As this fictional chapter continued to unfold, one thing was undeniable. The alleged punch may have knocked someone down physically, but the real impact was emotional. It forced truths into the open. It stripped away illusions. And it changed relationships in ways that couldn't be undone. And somewhere between the silence, the speculation, and the slow rebuilding of self, Remy began to move forward, knowing the story wasn't over yet, but knowing she was finally writing her own part of it. Because fans are shocked, timelines are on fire, and whispers are turning into full-blown digital chaos after one explosive alleged incident sent shockwaves through hip-hop gossip circles late last night. The headline alone is enough to make you do a double take. Remy Ma's boyfriend allegedly gets knocked out, and the shocking part? It wasn't Papoose. Yeah, you heard that right. According to fictional insiders close to the situation, what started as a low-key private night spiraled into something nobody saw coming. One moment, everything was calm, the next, emotions ran high, voices were raised, and someone ended up laid out cold. Phones came out, stories changed, and suddenly, everyone was asking the same question: who really crossed the line? Because for years, fans have watched Remy Ma and Papoose weather storms that would have broken most couples. Loyalty, public reconciliation, unbreakable unity, that's the image people thought they knew. So when rumors started swirling that another man in Remy's orbit was allegedly involved in a physical altercation, fans were left stunned and confused. Even more shocking? Papoose's name kept coming up, not as the aggressor, but as the unexpected calm in the middle of absolute chaos. And that's where this story gets messy. Social media detectives claim there was tension brewing long before the alleged knockout. Subtle shade, lingering looks, private conversations that were never meant to see the light of day. Friends noticed the energy shift. Family members reportedly felt something was off, and when the night in question finally arrived, all that unspoken tension exploded in a way no one could control. Voices were raised, accusations flew, old wounds were ripped wide open. And when the dust settled, one man was allegedly on the ground, pride bruised worse than his ego, while everyone else stood frozen, asking how things went so wrong so fast. Fans are divided. Some are pointing fingers, others are demanding answers, and a few are asking the question nobody wants to say out loud: was this inevitable? Because if this fictional story teaches us anything, it's that behind the glamour, the headlines, and the Instagram smiles, emotions can boil over, and when they do, the fallout can change everything. So stay right here, because what allegedly happened next? That's where the real drama begins. As the weeks rolled on in this fictional narrative, the initial shock faded but the consequences deepened. Remy started re-emerging slowly, carefully choosing where to show up and when to stay invisible. Every appearance was analyzed, every smile was questioned. Fans are shocked at how quickly people forget the chaos once a new moment presents itself, but Remy never forgot. She carried the weight quietly, letting it sharpen her sense of self instead of dull it. The boyfriend struggled with the opposite. Without the proximity to Remy, without the access to her world, he felt himself slipping further out of relevance. His frustration turned inward, then outward again. Friends noticed he spoke about the situation constantly, repeating details as if changing the order might change the outcome. He obsessed over the night, especially the moment he went down. The knocked-out incident became a symbol of everything he felt he lost in one instant. Respect, control, identity. In this fabricated story, he attempted damage control in the only way he knew how, by reframing himself as misunderstood. He talked about pressure, about living in someone else's shadow, about how men aren't allowed to be vulnerable. Some people listened, many didn't. The problem wasn't what he was saying. It was what he still refused to say. Accountability remained absent, and audiences could feel that gap instinctively. Remy watched from a distance, not with bitterness but with detachment. She had reached a point where his reactions no longer dictated her emotions. Friends commented on the change. She laughed more freely. She spoke more deliberately. She set boundaries without apologizing. The family was left divided still, but Remy no longer felt responsible for repairing fractures she didn't cause. Papoose, meanwhile, continued to exist on the edge of the narrative like a quiet constant. Every time his name trended, it reignited debates. Some fans pushed the idea of reconciliation. Others insisted he deserved peace far away from drama. He addressed none of it. In this fictional storyline, his silence became its own form of commentary. People projected whatever they wanted onto it, and he let them. One unexpected twist came when someone who had been at the original incident finally spoke out. Not in an interview, not on a big platform, but casually, in a comment that went viral. They claimed the punch wasn't personal, wasn't planned, and definitely wasn't about ego. They said it was instinct, a reaction to a moment that felt unsafe. They didn't name who threw it. They didn't clear anyone completely. But they shifted the focus. Fans are shocked again, not because of what was revealed, but because of how much still remained unclear. That comment reopened wounds for the boyfriend. He felt robbed of closure. He wanted a villain he could point to, a moment he could blame without reflecting on everything before it. Instead, he was left with ambiguity. Ambiguity doesn't trend well. It doesn't give satisfaction. It forces people to sit with discomfort, and he wasn't ready for that. Remy, on the other hand, found peace in not knowing every detail. She accepted that not all questions needed answers. Some moments exist only to teach, not to explain. That mindset helped her move forward professionally too. She poured herself into work, into creativity, into spaces where her voice felt powerful again. Fans noticed the shift. Her energy felt lighter, more grounded. It reminded people why they supported her in the first place. The boyfriend attempted one last grand gesture in this fictional arc. Not toward Remy directly, but toward the public. A long video. Emotional. Raw. He spoke about growth, about mistakes, about lessons learned. For a moment, it almost worked. Sympathy trickled in. Comments softened. But then he mentioned the night again, framing himself once more as the primary victim. And just like that, the momentum stalled. People saw through it. Growth without accountability rang hollow. Behind closed doors, Remy heard about the video and felt nothing. No anger. No sadness. Just distance. She realized she had truly moved on when his words no longer triggered a reaction. That realization felt like freedom. The family was left divided still, but the intensity faded. People stopped arguing. Stopped defending. Stopped attacking. Life continued. That, more than anything, signaled the end of this chapter. Drama survives on attention, and attention had shifted elsewhere. As this fictional story edged closer to its final act, the lesson became clear even to those who didn't want to see it. The night wasn't about a punch. It was about unresolved insecurity colliding with public pressure. It was about how quickly things can spiral when communication breaks down. And it was about how survival sometimes means walking away, even when the world demands explanations. Remy walked away quietly. The boyfriend stayed behind with his narrative. Papoose stayed steady in his silence. And fans, as always, moved on to the next headline, unaware of the emotional wreckage left behind. But in the background, the impact remained, shaping choices, changing dynamics, and reminding everyone involved that some moments, once lived, can never be undone, only understood later. And as this fictional saga prepared to transition toward its final phase, one truth lingered. The most shocking part was never who threw the punch. It was who grew from it, and who didn't. So here's where this fictional story leaves you. After all the chaos, the alleged knockout, the broken trust, the silence, the internet noise, and the emotional fallout, the biggest question still hangs in the air. What would you have done if you were in Remy's position? Would you have fought to fix something that kept breaking you, or would you have walked away the moment the red flags turned into real consequences? Fans are shocked not just by the alleged incident itself, but by how quickly things spiraled and how slowly healing seems to move. This fabricated drama wasn't about one punch or one night. It was about ego, insecurity, loyalty, and the price of letting emotions run unchecked when the whole world is watching. And now, it's your turn to weigh in. Do you think the boyfriend ever really understood what went wrong, or was he too focused on saving face to see the bigger picture? Do you believe Remy made the right call by choosing peace over explanation, or should she have spoken up louder to control the narrative? And what about Papoose's silence? Was it strength, strategy, or simply self-preservation? This is where you come in. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Don't just say who you side with, tell us why. Do you think accountability matters more than intention? Do you believe some relationships are meant to end the moment respect is lost? Or do you think this whole situation could have been handled differently before it ever reached that breaking point? If this fictional breakdown kept you locked in, make sure you hit the like button so more people can join the conversation. When you like the video, you're telling the algorithm this kind of dramatic storytelling deserves to be seen. And trust us, there's plenty more where this came from. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. By subscribing, you make sure you never miss the next story, the next twist, or the next deep dive into the kind of drama everyone pretends they're not watching but always are. Turn on notifications so you're the first to know when a new video drops, because these stories move fast, and you don't want to be late to the conversation. And if you're watching this thinking of someone who would absolutely have an opinion on this, send it to them. Share it in your group chat. Ask them what they think. Because stories like this don't live in silence, they live in debate, disagreement, and perspective. Remember, this was a fully fabricated, reality TV-style narrative meant for entertainment, but the emotions behind it feel real for a reason. Insecurity, pride, loyalty, and growth are things we all recognize, whether the spotlight is on us or not. Sometimes the loudest drama teaches the quietest lessons. So before you scroll away, ask yourself one last thing. If the roles were reversed, if the cameras were on you, and if one moment threatened to define your entire story, how would you want to be remembered? We'll see you in the comments.